Next to the old well, under the thin shade of a dead tree, a body lay still in the dirt. At first glance, Luke thought it was a fallen animal. Then the wind shifted, and he saw a hand move. His fingers tightened around the grip of his revolver. As he stepped closer, boots crunching on dry ground. The desert was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that warned a man something was wrong. As he reached the edge of the shade, he saw she was a woman. An Apache woman, tall, strong, even now, though her body was broken. One leg was bent at a wrong angle, the leather legging stiff with dried blood. Dust covered her dark skin, cracked lips parted just enough to pull in shallow breaths. One thing stood out more than anything else. Her hands were locked tight around a small leather pouch, gripping it as if letting go would end her life. Luke knelt beside her, scanning the land around them. Old hoofprints cut through the dirt, heading west. Whoever left her here did not care if she lived. He leaned in, checking her leg. It was not an open break, but bad enough that she could not walk. Not today. Maybe not for weeks. "Can you hear me?" he asked quietly. Her eyes fluttered open. Deep black eyes, sharp even through pain, filled with fear and warning. They moved from his face to the gun on his hip. Luke froze, then slowly reached for his canteen instead. He uncorked it and brought it to her lips. "Drink." She hesitated, then took small sips, never loosening her grip on the pouch. When some strength returned to her face, Luke made a choice he knew could not be undone. He lifted her carefully, tied her injured leg, and settled her onto his horse. "All right," he muttered, climbing up. "Let's get you out of this heat." They rode away from the abandoned well, red dust rising behind them. The sun burned high as the outline of Luke's cabin appeared on a low hill. He dismounted, lifted her down, surprised by how heavy and solid she felt, and carried her inside. The cabin was small and rough. One bed, one table, a fire pit. Luke laid her on the bed, but she pushed herself upright at once, eyes hard. Clutching the pouch to her chest. "Easy," Luke said calmly. "I am not taking it." He rolled up his sleeves and pulled out bandages, a bottle of strong liquor, and a knife. "Your leg needs to be set." She studied him for a long moment, then gave a faint nod. Luke cut the pant leg open, poured liquor over the swelling, and worked quickly. Blood seeped through his fingers. She clenched her jaw, sweat rolling down her face, but she made no sound. When he finished tying wooden splints to her leg, he set a blanket and canteen beside her. "Stay here. I'll sleep outside." She did not answer. She just watched him leave. Night came fast. Wind slipped through the cracks in the cabin walls, carrying the smell of dry grass. Luke lay on a bench on the porch, revolver close. Inside, firelight flickered, casting her shadow long across the wall. She did not sleep. Every sound made her tense. Every creak brought her eyes open. Luke knew without looking that she was guarding herself, not only from whoever chased her, but from him as well. Near midnight, the cold deepened. The door shifted slightly. Luke heard her cough, then pulled the blanket tighter. He stared at the dark sky and let out a slow breath. "Tomorrow," he thought. "Tomorrow I find out what she is running from." Morning light crept through the cracks. Luke stepped inside and found her still awake, back against the wall. Her eyes were calmer now, still sharp, but no longer wild. "You're alive," he said. He stirred the fire and cooked thin cornmeal porridge. When he handed her the bowl, she ate slowly, watching him between each bite. When she finished, she tried to stand. "Your leg." "It's broken," Luke said. "You need rest." She shook her head and reached for a cane. He hesitated, then handed it over. She moved outside, slow and stubborn, toward the well. Luke followed from a distance. She gave the horse water. Later, she dragged straw toward the barn. Luke watched in silence. She could have stayed inside. She chose to work. "You don't have to do that," he said. She pointed to a broken fence. They worked together. Luke drove posts. She held wire, steady despite the pain. When it was done, she handed him the canteen. "Drink," she said, her voice rough. "Thank you." Luke replied. That night, he slept inside on the bench. She lay on the bed, still holding the pouch, but not as tightly. The fire warmed the room. Two shadows shared the wall. Late into the night, Luke heard movement. He opened his eyes. She sat up and slowly opened the pouch. A soft metal sound filled the room. Inside was a silver wolf totem and a worn piece of leather map. She touched the totem to her forehead, eyes closed. "What is it?" Luke asked quietly. She turned toward him. "Proof," she said. "They planned to kill my father. This can save him." The room fell silent. Outside, the wind howled. Luke met her gaze. "Then you're not leaving until you can walk." Her eyes widened, not with fear, but surprise. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow, we fix the rest of the fence." She closed the pouch and lay back down. For the first time, her hand rested instead of clenched. In the glow of the fire, something fragile took shape. Not trust yet, but the beginning of it. The next morning broke, hot and bright, the kind of day that left no place to hide from the sun. Luke was already outside, stacking old boards near the barn when the cabin door creaked open. She stepped out slowly, leaning hard on the cane. Leg was still stiff, but there was fire in her eyes that pain could not dim. "You should stay inside," Luke said, without turning. She ignored him and dragged a bundle of straw toward the stall. Every step cost her something, but she refused to show it. Luke watched her for a moment, then shook his head and went back to work. They spent the morning in near silence. The rhythm of hammer on wood filled the air. At one point, she moved into the storage shed, searching through old supplies. Luke heard something fall, then stillness. When he stepped inside, he saw her holding a worn handkerchief. The fabric was thin, faded almost white with age. "Put that down," Luke said sharply. She froze. Slowly, she placed it on the table. "I was just cleaning," she said softly. Luke picked up the cloth, folding it with care. His jaw tightened. "Don't touch it." She nodded once and walked back outside, leaning on her cane. The rest of the day passed heavy and quiet. No words, only work. That evening, the fire crackled low. She sat by the hearth, blanket folded, neatly on the chair beside her. Luke stared into the flames for a long time before speaking. "That belonged to my wife," he said. "She died during the sickness. I keep it so I don't forget I once had a family." She did not look at him right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but tired. "I had a family too. They took mine from me." The fire popped between them. "I should not have snapped at you," Luke said. She nodded, eyes fixed on the flames. After a moment, Luke reached out, touching a scar on her shoulder. She did not pull away. The space between them felt smaller. Their first kiss came quietly. No rush, no words. Just two people leaning into something they both needed but never expected to find. The next days passed quickly. Her leg began to heal, though she still leaned on the cane. She worked whenever she could. Luke stopped arguing. It was just the way she was. One morning, the sound of hooves cut through the air. Luke stepped onto the porch, gun in hand. A tall Apache warrior rode up, face painted, eyes cold. "I am looking for a woman," the man said. "She stole a sacred totem." Luke did not move. "She is here." She stepped into the doorway, standing straight despite the pain. "I did not steal it," she said. It was taken to frame my father. I only took back what was ours." The warrior sneered. "Your father has already been judged." When he rode away, the silence pressed hard. Luke turned to her. "Is there anything you have not told me?" "I told you the truth," she said. "You don't believe me? I will." "Leave," Luke snapped. "You can barely walk. Then I will crawl." Luke stormed outside, breathing hard. When he came back, his voice was low. "If you go, you won't survive." "I don't want you dragged into this," she said. Luke met her eyes. "If you go, I go with you." That night, they reinforced the cabin windows and counted ammunition. Danger was no longer a distant idea. It was coming. 3 days later, she could walk a little without the cane. The full moon was close. "We have to go now," she said, "before it's too late." Luke packed supplies, tied the leather pouch to the saddle, and helped her mount. They rode toward the mountains, the land growing quiet and tense. A gunshot shattered the stillness. Luke pulled her down behind a rock as bullets tore into the dirt. 4 men charged from the brush. "Give us the pouch," one shouted. "Come take it," Luke replied. Gunfire erupted. Luke dropped one man, but cried out as a bullet grazed his shoulder. Blood soaked his shirt. She grabbed the rifle, bracing herself with the cane. "Leave!" she shouted. Now, the remaining men fled. She knelt beside Luke, binding his wound. With steady hands, "Can you ride?" He smiled weakly. "I promise to get you there." They reached the council circle by nightfall. Firelight revealed stern faces. She stepped forward, telling the truth, holding up the totem. The elder listened in silence, then nodded. "Your father will live." He turned to Luke. "You stood with her. You are a friend of the tribe." They rode home at dawn, wounded but alive. When the cabin came into view, Luke breathed out slowly. "We're home," he said. She looked at the cabin. "If you want it to be?" He nodded. In the days that followed, danger faded. Work returned. Silence returned too, but it was no longer empty. One evening, she sat by the fire, hair loose, eyes soft. "I thought I had nowhere to go." Luke took her hand. "Then stay." She smiled. Outside, the land rested. Inside, the cabin no longer. Felt lonely. Something new had taken root, fragile but real, waiting for the future to decide its shape. Spring came quietly to the land, not all at once, but in small signs that only those who stayed long enough could notice. Green pushed through the cracked earth. The cattle grew calmer. The wind no longer carried fear with it. Luke drove fence. Posts at sunrise while she led the horses back from the lower fields. Her legs still ached, but she walked without the cane now. Each step felt like a victory she did not speak about. They worked side by side without needing words. Silence had become something comfortable between them. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the hills gold, Luke hung his Winchester on the wall. He stepped back and looked at it for a long moment. "I don't want to live waiting for the next threat," he said. She nodded. "Neither do I." That night, she sat near the fire, slowly opening the leather pouch. The silver wolf totem caught the firelight. She traced its shape with her thumb, then tied the pouch closed again. "I don't need to carry it like armor anymore," she said. Luke watched her carefully. "Does that mean you're staying?" She did not answer right away. Instead, she Rose opened the cabin door and looked out across the land. The fences stood straight. The horses grazed calmly. The sky stretched wide and open. "I was cast out once," she said. "I learned how easily a place can turn its back on you." Luke stepped beside her. "This place won't." She turned to him then, eyes searching his face for doubt. She found none. "I will stay," she said softly. Life settled into a steady rhythm. They planted a small garden near the well. Luke repaired the roof while she patched the barn walls. At night, they shared meals by the fire. Speaking of small things, weather, work. Tomorrow, one afternoon, thunder rolled across the plains. Rain fell hard, soaking the ground, washing dust from the land. They stood together on the porch, watching the water run through the dirt like something being healed. This land needed that. She said, "So did we," Luke replied. Months passed, the scars faded, the fear faded, but the memories stayed. Softer now, no longer sharp enough to wound. One evening, as stars filled the sky, she sat beside Luke on the steps. "If my father ever comes looking for me," she said, "I want him to see this place. I want him to know I am safe." Luke placed his hand over hers. He will. The cabin, once silent and empty, now held warmth. Not just from the fire, but from the simple truth of two people choosing to remain. When winter came again, it did not feel cruel. Snow gathered on the hills. The wind howled, but the door stayed shut tight. Inside, the fire burned steady. She leaned against Luke, her head resting on his shoulder. "I used to believe love was something promised," she said. "Now I know it is something proven." Luke smiled faintly. "By staying." "Yes," she said. "By staying." Outside, the land slept. Inside, the cabin breathed with quiet. Life, two souls who once stood alone in the desert, had built something stronger than fear. Not a perfect life. Not an easy one, but a real one. And that was enough.